Thank you very much. We're going to summarize in this section what we have been saying for the whole other 10 segments. But before we do, I'd like to ask Loretta Brady to come out, who's been dutifully assisting with the exercises.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much. I've really learned so much from listening to your sharings, and I really appreciate that you felt comfortable and free enough to share. It's been a wonderful experience that we've spent together, and I'm very grateful to you. So it's nice to get to know you and to have been here together. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
I would like to summarize, if I could, how I have use these steps, these things that we've been suggesting in my own life. And the first was, if you recall, joyful self-acceptance. Now, I truly believe everything that we have been saying. I'm trying to practice it, and it's been tried out in the laboratory of my own life before it was ever proposed to you. What's helped me most to self-acceptance, because like everyone else, I tended to compare myself with other people, tended to have an inferiority complex like everyone else that I know because of those 431 negative messages we get during childhood. But what has helped me most is knowing that I am who God wanted me to be. That St. Paul, had a weakness. He said, a sting in my flesh. And they think it may have been infected eyes, because he thanked one of his communities for accepting him in spite of his ugly appearance. But he said, I pleaded with God, take away the sting in my flesh. And God said, no, no, no. It is in your weakness that my strength will show through. And I keep thinking that God can act through anyone. And God can even act through me. God can act through me. If only I will love, God will act through me. So that this has been a great source of satisfaction for me. They say every baby is born with clenched fists, so that everybody dies with open hands. That we have to possess as much of the world as we can, as much learning as we can, but always ready to turn it over to God. Into your hands, Father, I commend my spirit. So that it's helped me a great deal to know this, that God can work through anyone, and God even works through me. And I must tell you this, to be honest, that God has given me more success than I ever dreamed in my most technicolor dreams. I never dreamed that God would use me as he has. And I keep blinking into the face of God and saying, is this real? Is this for sure? You have the right person in mind? But what I feel sure is that God picks us out, and God uses us according to his will. And it is in our weakness that his strength shines through. And this helps me a great deal toward self-acceptance. The second step was to take full responsibility for your acts and for your emotions. And I'm really trying to do this. And every time I catch myself blaming some other person or some situation or something, I call myself up short for that. No, you don't do that. It comes from something in you. And I find that's true. And I'm now at the stage where it's kind of a game. Oh, that's what it is. Now, I got to tell you, just among us girls, that my father used to animate inanimate things and then swear at them. And we used to laugh at Daddy doing that. Oh, how funny. Until I find myself doing that. The pencil rolls off my desk and rolls under the desk, and I say, oh, sure, roll under the desk, you pencil, where I can't get you without getting down my hands and knees. And then I recall my daddy did that. And now I'm doing that. And I'd say, oh, that's where I got that. And other things come up in me that are from the past. I was with someone recently who was going to take a picture, but the people that he was going to photograph wouldn't sit still. And he said, I'm a depression kid. I can't take the picture. I don't want to waste the film unless everybody's going to pose. And I thought, oh, my goodness, our yesterdays lie heavily upon our todays lie heavily upon our tomorrows. So what I believe now is that every reaction of mine, emotional, behavioral, and so forth, comes out of something in me. It's not because of you or anyone else, but because of something in me. It arises because of something in me. And what arises in me comes out of something in my past indoctrination, my past experiences, out of my past somewhere. And it's become a game for me to trace that back. Oh, I bet I know why I feel that way. I bet I know what that means. I bet I know why I swear at the pencils that roll under my desk. The third suggestion was relaxation and exercise and nutrition. And I must say that the start of the last part of my life, at least, in the early 1970s, was when I took a stress test. And the doctor stopped the machine and told me to sit down and told me to put my feet up. And I thought, oh, something is wrong. And he told me my heart was fibrillating. And I said, what does that mean? He said, oh, it could mean a number of things. He said, I would suggest you take another stress test in 6 months. And I said, tell me what fibrillation is from. Oh, he said, it could be from anything. It could be from the fact that you were on a treadmill and so forth. And then he mentioned it could also be from the fact that you don't get enough exercise. So I went home and bought track shorts and track pants, and I said, I'm going out on that track. And it was very embarrassing at first because ladies with shopping bags would pass me. And the other Jesuit would say, I can walk faster than you can run. I said, go away, please. One time I was out alone and one Jesuit yelled out, you're way ahead of the guy in second place. I was all alone on the track. And, but I want to tell you that I took the second stress test in 6 months, no trouble at all. And then what I noticed too is that I began feeling better, and everything else was working out well. So I found out that if I exercise every day, I relax much more. Even when I give retreats now, week-long retreats, I make sure that an hour of that day is spent in exercise, walking somewhere, doing something that is exercise, and it cleans out the chemicals of tension and starts the endorphins flowing. Otherwise, I just get too nervous. And I try to breathe and to relax myself. I walk along the street saying, and as I draw in, I say, I am, and then as I exhale, I say, relaxed. And by the end of the block, I'm a wet noodle. But I also find that taking multiple vitamins and so forth, recently there was a study done on women who have had children, and if they take multiple vitamins every day, they tend to have fewer deformed children. And all kinds of studies have proven this, that if you're on the right diet, if you eat nutritionally well, you're much more healthy. So I'm trying to do that, and that's how that takes place in my life. I try to make my life an act of love. You know, one time the provincial assigned a number of us to go around to the different Jesuit houses and talk on presenting Jesus to young people. And so when I came to Loyola and I was presenting this, I was very nervous because the Jesuits at Loyola had never heard me talk. And they didn't know how good I was. And I wanted to know how good I was. I was going to say, Fulton Sheen is coming up from Raps Brothers. You've had a gym right here in your midst, and you didn't know this, did you? And I was nervous. My hands were cold. My mouth was dry. And so I started to pray, and I said, Lord, put the hands over me you put over the Sea of Galilee. And nothing happened. And then I said, Lord, I'm asking in your name, and you said whatever we asked in your name, the Father would give us. Now, I don't mean to be pushy now or impolite, but I am asking in your name. And nothing happened. So I said, Lord, are you trying to tell me something? And the Lord said, you're getting ready to give another performance. And when I heard the word performance, I thought, I'm not making this up, because I would never embarrass myself that way. And I don't need any more performances from you, only acts of love. You're getting ready to perform for your brothers so they will know how good you are. They don't need that. They need to love them so they'll know how good they are. That's all I heard, but I know I heard that. I know deep down inside my imagination God implanted those words. But I remember looking out at the Jesuit community and saying, have I ever really loved you? And you know what? I didn't know the answer. I couldn't say, oh, yes, of course I have. I didn't really know. And I looked at the older men, I thought, have I ever loved you? I was young at the time, and I thought, what is that like to be retired, not to be pulling your own weight, to be, oh. When you don't have a class anymore and no one ever asks you to do anything anymore, what is it like? And then I looked out at the men in my community who are sick every day, and I've had relatively good health. And I thought, what is that like to live with sickness? To live with migraine headaches? To live with an ache in your guts called an ulcer, to live with an ache in your bones called arthritis. I don't know how people do that. It just amazes me. And what is that like to be sick every day? And then the alcoholics. There are 5 in my community. And they're all Irish, by the way, and they call it the Irish virus. But what is that like to be an alky priest? They're all recovering alcoholics. They all go to AA meetings. What is that like? What is it like at Mass when you can't take a full chalice of wine because it'll start you drinking again? What is that like? And I admire those men very, very much. And then I looked at the men in my community who are failures. And what is it like? What must it feel like to be a failure? You know, when I tell people I've never thought of leaving the priesthood, they say, yes, but you've been a big success as a priest. And I say, yeah, that's true. What if you were a failure? What if no one ever asked you to do anything? What if people laughed at your best sermons and your best advice? Oh, I thought that would be very painful. And yet some men carry on in spite of that. They do. And I kept thinking, and these were the guys I was going to impress with how good I was. I wanted them to know how good I am. And I felt so cheap. I felt like a penny waiting for change. And I said, remembering Mary Martin's advice, she said she peeked out of the curtains at her audience, said, I love you, I love you, I love you. She said, because if you're loving, you're never nervous. You can't be, because your mind isn't on yourself. If you're thinking, how cute am I, huh? You think I'm funny? Then you're self-conscious, then you can be nervous. But now when you're thinking about someone else, you're saying, how are you? Are you doing all right? I would really like to help you. I'd like to say something that will benefit you. Then you're never nervous. So I looked out at the Jesuit community. Of course, it's all is done in my own breath, because the other two fellows are still speaking. And I said, I'm going to love you. I promise you, I'm going to love you. I may have not loved you up to now, but I'm going to love you from now on. And the next time I took my own temperature, my saliva was back in my mouth and blood was back in my fingers, and I wasn't nervous. I thought, oh, Mary Martin's right. When you're loving, you're never nervous. And I began trying, I think, I may be exaggerating, I lie a lot, but I think everything I have done since then, including the classes I have taught, the speeches I've given, including this speech, I sit over there, I'm saying, Lord, help it to be an act of love and not another performance. I would really hate to meet the Lord at the end of life and say, boy, you put on a good act, man. They thought you were real. But take off the costume now and wipe off the makeup and give back the lines because your act is over. I don't want that. I want my life to be an act of love, or it's nothing. If I don't have love, as St. Paul says, I'm tingling brass and sounding cymbals. I'm nothing if I don't love. And so before I go into a classroom, before I get up to give a talk, I always ask, Lord, let it be an act of love. Let me say something that will help those people to know how good they are and not how good I am. Help me not to be able to think about myself. And for that, obviously, for a life of love, you have to practice empathy. You have to really get outside yourself. This fixation with ourselves is so real that in order to break it, you have to really ask, what is it like to be you? I wonder what it's like to be you. What is it like to be elderly? What is it like to be sick? What's it like to be alcoholic? What's it like to be a failure? What is that like? What does it feel like? What is it like to be you? And everybody is different. And I look out at the sea of faces in my own classroom and I say, what is that like? And then I get journals at the end, faith journals. I go, oh, wow. The amount of pathos in everyone's life, the amount of suffering, the amount of joy in everyone's life. It's really very ennobling. And what I find is that if you're a loving person, God will act. God will act through your love. It's not, you don't have to be a big success in the eyes of the world to have your name up in lights. But just be a loving person. And through the channel of your love, God sends his healing grace into people's lives. I'm sure he does that. So trying to make my life an act of love, I have prayed to God that this would happen. And as far as stretching is concerned, which was the next thing we suggested on our list of Beatitudes, I used to be very shy, and still shyness comes back occasionally, but I ride right over it. I walk through a group of students. I know they're going to stop me, but I'm not going to cross the street and walk around them. I walk right through them and wave. I'm in a hurry. And to say no to people is very hard for me. I used to have to get a man's picture with a very ugly look on his face and a stencil, a big no underneath it, because my arm could be so easily twisted. Won't you please, the third time we tried to get you, yes, okay, I will. And then they'll fine. No, I'm sorry, I can't. My time is too limited. But I'm really trying every day to stretch, to be a freer person, to be a non-manipulatable person, to be free, to try things I've never tried before, to share things I've never shared before, to admit things, to apologize. These are all stretches for me. And I'm trying to stretch once every day in order to be a freer person, to really experience the freedom of the children of God. And I'm also trying to grow and not to be perfect. And it's really hard for me not to be perfect. It's very hard for me to accept myself as a fraction. Every time I make a fool of myself, every time I do something, when I propose to my class, which of these is hardest for you to accept? Your body, your mind, your mistakes, your accomplishments, or your emotions? And I'm amazed by the way that people run a cross gamut of those things. For some people, it's one poor girl wrote, I'm afraid I'm imprisoned in this ugly body for the rest of my life. And some people think, oh, my mind, if only I had a good mind. But for me, it's obviously my mistakes. I keep thinking about my mistakes, and I keep thinking, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Ooh, what a dumb thing. And I've got to accept myself. And what helps me most to know that God does not expect me to be perfect is when I perform marriages. And the couple comes up, and I say to myself, I wonder how well they know each other. And my answer, I never tell them this. I never put it in the sermon, wedding sermon. But I don't think you know each other very well. How well did you know the person you married? I don't think you knew a person very well. But what's beautiful about it is you're taking a vow to grow up together, to mature together. And when I was doing that one day, it occurred to me that's what God is asking me to do. Not to give him a perfect life of sacrifice, because I'm not perfect. I'm still struggling, but to share my life with him the way a married couple shares their lives together, to share my life with him, and to share my weaknesses with him, to laugh with him, to talk to him, to make him my life's companion. And I think we all have to do that in a certain way. We have to become aware of the fact that God doesn't want us to be perfect, but God just wants us to share our lives with him. As far as good finding is concerned, I really do try hard to find out whatever is good in myself. And I told you I keep a list of good qualities of God's blessings in my center drawer, and I do add to it. And when people come in with long faces, their chin needs a roller skate, and I say, make out a list of everything you like about yourself, of all the special blessings God has given you. And they say, you're kidding. I say, oh, no, I'm not kidding. Want to see mine? And mine is typed out and alphabetized. I had to alphabetize it because I was repeating the same good qualities, from time to time. Want to see mine? And I do keep that, and I do really ask people, I don't say expand on that compliment, but when they're trying to say something nice to me, I want to listen to that. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. To really interiorize that fact that you are a good person, that God is acting through you. And I think, oh, that's marvelous. And not to try to be perfect. You don't have to prove yourself. And something that I have discovered is that the more wounded you are, the more wounded of a healer you are, the more people listen. The more people can identify with you. If you give off forth this sound that everything is, I've got it all together, who can follow you? Who can follow such an act? They say an underachiever, are people who don't use their talent, are usually the sons or daughters of very achieving people. And they say, how do I follow an act like that? What do I do? So they become underachievers. And I think, yeah, that's true. If you present yourself as a high achiever, people can't identify with you. But if you say, I'm one of you, I'm not preaching just to you, I'm preaching to myself too. I have the same struggles you do. Then people can identify. And I'm really trying to do that. And what's hard? It's very hard for me is to laugh at my own mistakes. And I find that the further they are in the past, the more I can laugh at them. I can laugh at myself. I once did this. I once said this. I once was in Louisville, Kentucky, and was standing under the bright light singing by myself. I can laugh about that now, but I couldn't laugh about that at the time. I was very embarrassed and mortified. And so I'm trying now to make that laugh more spontaneous as I grow. For as far as communication is concerned, what's hardest for me is to say my feelings when they're negative feelings, when they're hurt feelings. I know my act. They say that if we've all played that game where they put a name on your back and you're supposed to guess who it is. And then we carry a sign out in front of us that we have written. We advertise ourselves a certain way. And everybody seems to know your act except you. And what I wanted to come across as was the big helper, the big Messiah. I've got it all. Oh, you can't help me, but I can help you. And to really communicate negative feelings, like I felt hurt. I felt very lonely. I felt very sad. I felt very afraid. These are very hard for me. So I try to stretch by communicating my negative feelings. My negative in the sense that they're negative to that image. They destroy that image that I've got it all together. And I say, no, I don't have it all together. I'm one of you. And I feel lonely. I feel sad. Some mornings I wake up and I tell God, when I tell him my feelings, I don't want to be a priest today. I don't feel like being a priest today. You know what? They're going to devour me. Oh, listen, Jesus. When one of the 10 lepers came back to thank you, I want to tell you something. You were running about average. That's about how many people come back. I don't feel like it at all. Oh, but I'm going to be out there. I mean, I'm not going to let that silly emotion make my decision, but I'm going to tell you how I feel. The other days, by the way, when I wake up and I say, I'm in a mountain-moving mood, God. Where are those mountains you want moved? I'm your mover. But to be very honest with people and to tell them exactly how you feel is very hard for me. Because I want to tell people, I want to create the impression that I've got it all together. I remember when I quit smoking, about 1972, I guess it was. And I used to tell people, I am going to stop smoking. And then they would see me with a cigarette in my mouth. I thought you stopped. And I used to want to joke and say, listen, if you want to know how to quit, ask me. I've quit more than anybody you know. One morning I woke up and I said to God, this humiliates me. This is very humiliating. This little piece of weed wrapped up in toilet paper is stronger than I am. Ugh. And I keep telling people and they keep saying, oh, come on, I thought you would quit. And I said, I don't even know how to answer them. And I heard God say, this is one of the times in my life when I know that God spoke to me, I have the strength for you. And I said, okay, you got the strength. You give me your strength, you got a deal. And I don't know what I did, but in that moment, see, I'd tried Bantron, I'd tried self-hypnosis, I tried everything to stop smoking until I finally turned it over to God, and I haven't smoked since that moment. But what was really unusual was I didn't want to smoke after that. I had the nicotine fits and everything, you know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night jerking, but I never wanted to go back. And I went back into chapel and I said to God, hey, this is you. Oh, you're not kidding me. I know this is you because in all the other instances in which I quit, I wanted to go back. But I don't want to go back this time. You erased my memory. St. Augustine once said, the trouble with sin is that the body remembers. And my body remembered how good it felt to sit back after a full meal and have a cup of coffee and a cigarette. And I didn't want that anymore. And I went back and I said to God, this has to be you. And God said, yes, and I could do many other things for you. If you reach that point of ego desperation, try your own little formula until they run out. And then come back to me because I can make you a lover, I can make you happy, I can make you anything. I can really do great things through you if you're willing to turn it over to me. But you got to give up yourself. Get out of the driver's seat and turn it over to me, all right? Okay, you got me. As far as enjoying life is concerned, the things that I really enjoy most are nature. A green grass or green lawns or something with sunlight on just turns me into ecstasy. Every springtime is a miracle for me. And I love new fallen snow. And people were harder for me. And I'm learning now to look past the weak and foolish things to find the beautiful and good belongings that no one else would look quite far enough to find. But there's an old Irish ditty that to live above with the saints we love, that is the purest glory. But to live below with the saints we know, that is another story. And that's how I used to feel. What are people? People are, and I am now at the point of saying they're needy. And what they really need is affirmation. What they really need is belief in themselves. And when they have that, boy, they just change. Loretta was telling me that when she deals in psychotherapy, dealing with people, she says, I just love them and they change. I just love them. I give them love, give them affirmation. and everybody that I know has so thrived on affirmation that I'm really trying to do that. But I'm really also trying to see what's good about people. And sometimes it really helps when you find someone who's very difficult to think of their good points and even write them down. That's very good. At least they have this, and then gradually it snowballs in you, at least it does in me, that you begin to understand that they're great people. So I am really trying to enjoy people, and I'm trying to pray. I pray every day. I pray formally for 45 minutes, but I also pray every day. As I walk through life, I pray. And I think I told you about telling Jesus, you better be there, man, because I've gambled everything on you. But I pray, and I have to tell you this, to be honest, I never find prayer dry. I find that through what we talked about, the 5 antennae of the mind, the will, the emotions, the imagination, the memory, God always somehow puts a new perspective in my mind, a new desire in my heart as a result of turning my life over to Him, as a result of describing who I am to Him. And so that's how I use these things in life. When I sat down to write this book, of which this video program, is a supplement and also a synthesis or a summary, I thought to myself, what are the practices a person must do in order to be happy? And these are they, and I wish you all great happiness. Thank you. I love you. I love you. I love you.